I'm going to put on my lawyer hat here and give you both sides of the argument as to why UConn is and is not a good fit for the Big 12.
You are Locked On College Football, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth, realignment, coaching carousel, the portal, and everything you need for the season, and so much more. The season is officially here, and it's really official later this week. We'll talk Notre Dame, Texas A&M, why Memphis has a better shot at the playoff than Oklahoma State, all on today's show, which is brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. That is Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12, to talk about the never-ending saga that is realignment, of course. Right when we're just starting to enjoy our football, boom, here you go. UConn is having very real, serious, legitimate conversations with the Big 12. The report from Dennis Dodd over at CBS Sports is that there are 6 schools that are on board, that are 2 that are opposed, and a bunch that are, we don't really know right now. So here's how this segment's going to work. I'm going to be the cross-examiner on the side of don't add UConn to the Big 12. Drake's going to be the key witness on the side in favor of adding UConn to the Big 12. And we'll proceed with our questioning. And Drake, because I'm a cross-examiner, I'm not going to ask you how you're doing because you're the opposing witness. I want you to be in a finicky
terrible
mood. Yes,
I'm not doing well at all.
Yes, that's great to hear. So, Drake, isn't it true that the Big 12 has already expanded to 16 teams, and yet you're making the case to add a 17th?
It is correct that the Big 12 has added 8 new programs in the last 3 years, Spencer.
And why is adding a 17th team the right move for the Big 12?
When in the conversation of revenue, it could benefit the conference. At that point, you would move to add another team.
Is it a revenue positive or even neutral move to add UConn to the Big 12 conference?
Spencer, that's a question that is one I'm excited to answer because adding UConn actually is a revenue positive move for the Big 12. What if I told you? What if I told you we live in a world in which you know what I'm answer? I'm gonna answer your question with a question. Spencer, who has won 16 national championships combined in men's and women's basketball since 1999? Which school?
I believe the answer is UConn.
Oh, nice. Somebody's smart, huh? Lawyer, went to law school. All right, Spencer, which program in college basketball has won 6 men's championships with 3 different head coaches?
Drake, the point you are making is well taken. I'd remind the court that in media rights revenue discussions, the overwhelming majority, though not 100% to be sure, comes from the football side of things. So I want to turn to that particular angle here. Is UConn football capable of bringing anything to the Big 12? Isn't it true that they struggle to get over 500 as an independent?
The number 50 overall revenue earning school per USA Today last year, Connecticut. Number 51, Colorado, baby.
And for those who are unaware, revenue in what sense? Just total athletic department revenue? Is that what you're referring to?
Total athletic revenue.
But does that athletic department revenue carry over to then bring value to the Big 12?
Yes, and the reason being, this is what Clemson is in football is what UConn is in basketball. They've given you enough over a period of time where you go, I could kind of work with that, actually. Now, would you add Wichita State because they were good at basketball for a long time and their revenue went up because they were good at basketball for 15 years? No, of course not, because they don't have the football aspect. At least UConn does, and they've been to a Fiesta Bowl in the last 25 years. So they did something. That was fun. More Fiesta Bowls than Iowa State and more Fiesta Bowls than Colorado, which is a nice little caveat to the conversation about UConn. So can football be good? Sure. And what Brett Yormark has done is said, hey, whoa. Your football sucks and you're not investing in it. You actually give more money to basketball than you do football. And you're the only major program that does that. What if we just didn't take your football team until 2031 and you cleaned this stuff up? And we, on basically football being a moot point, grabbed your basketball program, which is a move that is paid for by Fox or ESPN, who are reportedly involved in these conversations. And Brett Yormark says, hey, look, my presentation, this is UConn. They make a lot of money because of basketball, similar to Kansas, similar to Louisville. Hey, this is Fox and ESPN, and they're the ones that are going to help pay for this. Our revenue is going to go up because we make this move. It's not going to be because we want to do this. It's because the TV networks want us to do this. And that's why it makes sense for the Big 12.
But Drake, isn't it also true that according to reports, Fox has not been immediately on board with the idea of adding a Yahoo school like UConn? I said that because you just took a drink from a Yahoo.
Literally Yahoo. Literally YOOHOO.
Yeah, it's close enough. It's close enough. I don't drink them, if you couldn't tell.
I did see the tweet from the people that are on Twitter that were like, oh, well, Fox might not want to be doing this. Sure, maybe. My thing is, if ESPN does, cool. It's great. All it takes is one of those two networks to say, we'll give you millions of dollars for that. And then you move forward with it. This is going to have to be something that the networks are behind. And as long as one of the big two is, you're fine. You're in a good spot.
Drake, if UConn is added, that would present an odd number of schools in the conference. Does that present any logistical hurdles for the Big 12 to operate outside of the major sports is something you also want to think about here?
I would answer your question by saying in recent expansion, we have seen most schools move with other schools. There's usually been a partner in major college football or major college expansion. And that's when I would go, start spreading the news. Washington State, Oregon
Frank
State.
Frank Sinatra live and in person.
I know you guys have been sitting out there for a while just wondering what's going to happen. And maybe it's not you. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not you, Gonzaga, but it's somebody. It's not going to be a lone move. Just UConn comes to the Big 12. Somebody else is brought in on this. And maybe it's Fox that says, look, sure, fine, we can get behind part of this, but we're going to need you to add somebody else, a la Gonzaga, Washington State, Oregon State, or down the line, the goal would be then ACC programs.
Some might look at a move such as SMU to the ACC and say, oh, well, look, it's an odd number of teams. That's only in football, of course, because Notre Dame is an affiliate member in every other sport in the ACC, thus giving them an even number of teams and making travel logistics potentially easier. Last question I have for you here, Mr. Toll, is does this significantly strengthen the Big 12's position in realignment as they look to further solidify their status as the number 3 conference in the country, presuming Florida State and Clemson end up getting out of the ACC and wind up in the Big 10 or the SEC? Does adding UConn in every sport but football in 2 years' time and every sport, including football, by the time this current media rights contract ends, does that make them perceptionally or in reality a much stronger league?
Yeah, there were murmurs a few months back that basketball was going to become king, that Kansas was going to the SEC because now ESPN and Fox want to dole out even more money for college basketball. And I don't think that's true. I think we are crawling very close to a day where ESPN and Fox go, hey, wait a second, we're spending too much money on college football. This product is not giving us what we want, and these numbers are going to cap. That's why I don't think basketball...
I don't know. College football television numbers are going up every single year.
How long is the money going to be growing up with it? Maybe
I don't know. That's a fair question to ask. It might not last forever. I'm just saying right now, college football is a hot commodity. It's the second most watched sport in the country after the NFL.
What's part of my justification for that? Part of my justification for why I don't think the basketball is going to get more money is because I believe that football at some point will plateau it somewhere, at least for a bit. Sure. The perception, your question was about perception, which matters not in expansion. It's all about the money and what the war room conversations are. But perception-wise, you create the best basketball conference in the country, and you have also, in those war rooms, opened up the conversation with ESPN and Fox to say, hey, we're not negotiating for 16 teams. We're negotiating for 16 plus whatever else you want. If you want it to be UConn, if you want us to go out and add Washington State, hey buddy, that's you're the ones that you're paying us. So we're not negotiating 16. We've now opened a conversation with the TV network about other schools joining our conference and whether or not it's viable from those networks and their money. Sure, great, awesome. If that conversation's open, the Big 12's in a good spot.
So in closing, you are in favor of UConn going to the Big 12?
As long as their football doesn't touch us for a very, very long time, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time. Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12. Thank you, good sir.
I hope. Is this why people hate lawyers? I don't know.
I think there are a lot of other reasons. Is they're usually involved in situations that are not fun to deal with. Like if a lawyer's getting involved, nothing great is ever usually happening. You know what I mean?
Like we recently became friends. People still think we hate each other. We recently became friends a few months ago, and now
We'll get even closer this Thursday in Salt Lake City, or we'll drive each other further apart. You never know. We'll just have to wait and see. But we're gonna wait and see on Notre Dame, Texas A&M. That's this Saturday. College Game Day is gonna be there in College Station. I still think Notre Dame is winning, even without the guy who is going to be their starting left tackle. That is coming up next. Are you tired after lunch? You're not alone. In fact, research shows that more than 70% of us hit the wall after lunch. Let a 5-hour energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore. They've got watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry. Oh, and there's a flavor for everyone, just so you know. So you got to go and try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it is delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order, cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. LOCKEDONCFB, that is the code. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Are Notre Dame's playoff hopes on the line in week 1 with College Game Day in town at College Station? That's Tyler Wojciak, Locked On Fighting Irish, joining me here to discuss not on the line in that if they lose, they're out of it. Like if Clemson loses to Georgia, they're not going to make the playoff. But if Notre Dame beats Texas A&M, Tyler, boy, their schedule is among the most favorable. It's up there with Missouri for the most favorable in all of college football. They'll go for about a month and a half without playing a true road game, right smack dab in the middle. If they beat Texas A&M, which they are favored not to do right now, feels like they're getting into the playoff no matter what.
Yeah, it feels a lot like 2018. Notre Dame went undefeated in that season, and they had a really tough season opener. They faced Michigan. It was a really close game. Notre Dame got out to an early lead and was able to hold on, and then they won that game. And then you looked at the rest of the schedule, and you're like, wow, it really opens up. And that's exactly what happened. Notre Dame ended up finishing that regular season undefeated. They made it to the college football playoff. I look at this schedule in a similar way. If they beat Texas A&M, it really opens up. Now, there are still some tricky games for sure. They've got Louisville in the month of September. I think that's going to be a tough game. They have Florida State and Georgia Tech, and the impressions for both of those teams certainly has changed a lot after last weekend, but Georgia Tech's going to be tricky. That game is in Atlanta. And then they close with USC, and I have no idea what to expect from the Trojans. So if they are able to win this game, I really like their chances of not only making college football playoff, but potentially winning a game or two. If they end up losing this game, I think it's going to be really tough for them to win out. I mean, they still definitely can, but it's possible that they trip up one more time because there's going to be so much added pressure. And I don't know if a 10-2 Notre Dame team gets into the college football playoff with this schedule.
I think that depends on how certain teams perform. So if you lose close to Texas A&M and they go 9-3 in the SEC, and Mike Elko's first year with Connor Wigman at the helm, and he's healthy and rolling at the end of the season, then that road loss isn't going to be counted against you in a significant way. And if the other loss is what I predicted before the year, last week of the regular season at USC, and they're an 8 or 9 win Big Ten team, and you look impressive elsewhere, and you beat Florida State, and you win at Georgia Tech, and the Yellow Jackets end up being an 8-9 win team, I think you can do it. But going into this Texas A&M game, Aggies favored by 2.5, and I can already read the comments, Tyler. I have telepathic powers, whatever the word is, that can see the comments that are coming into the section below of, oh my gosh, here we go with Texas A&M again. Oh my gosh, we're hyping up Texas A&M, blah, blah, blah. Mike Elko's really good. He's really good. There are not a lot of coaches that have made Duke good enough to house Clemson as they did a season ago. That's not something that should happen. Elko's really good. It's why Texas A&M is favored in this football game. And of course, they are at home. It's a college game day game, but no starting left tackle for the Fighting Irish. How big of a concern is that to you?
Well, they will have a starting left tackle. I promise you that there will be a player out there playing left tackle.
They're not going to go 4 offensive linemen to match the 4 down linemen from Texas A&M.
It's just not the player that they expected to do that at the start of preseason camp, because Charles Jagasaw was going to be the starting left tackle. He tore his pec in the first week of camp. And then Anthony Knapp, a true freshman, has won the job in a bit of a surprise to those from the outside. He's not like a super high 5-star type of player or anything like that. He's a 3-star guy. But I remember when he committed to Notre Dame, there were a lot of coaches who, spoke through anonymous sources in the recruiting world that they loved him. They said he was extremely violent and he was going to surprise a lot of people. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to put that in the memory bank and then maybe think about that again in 2 to 3 years' time. Well, a couple months later, he's going to be the starting left tackle for Notre Dame. And look, it's definitely a loss. When I found out that Charles Jagasaw got hurt, I was really bummed, but it's camp. It happens. And I think the way that people have reacted, it's almost too far to the extreme, because Jagasaw was a redshirt freshman. He had one career start, and that was in the bowl game last year against an Oregon State team that was depleted. Basically, their entire roster had left. And the only reason that Jagasaw was even starting was because Joe Walt opted out of the bowl game because he declared for the NFL draft. So it is a loss, but it's not like Joe Walt was projected to start, and now they have to go with the true freshman. It was a smaller question mark replaced by a bigger question mark just because he is a true freshman and the first game is on the road. So don't get me wrong. It's going to impact the game, but I think people are getting a little bit too far ahead of themselves, thinking that now he is going to be terrible and they don't even have a chance at winning in this game.
You're just easing my concerns of sticking with my Notre Dame pick in this game. I think it is hard, even for a coach as good as Mike Elko, to come out and game one of the new administration that you're establishing, just have everything firing on all cylinders. This is year 3 for Marcus Freeman. He's got a veteran quarterback. You've got Mike Denbrock as the offensive coordinator, who was the OC at LSU a year ago for Jaden Daniels' Heisman season. I love all of that. I don't love the sound. Colin Cowherd has had that exercise for years. Say it out loud. True freshman starting left tackle at Texas A&M week 1. Don't love it. Don't love it. I'm sticking with Notre Dame on my pick in this game, though. And I like Connor Wegman. I am a big Riley Leonard fan. I think he's an absolute gamer if you keep him on the field. I think the Denbrock hire is huge. The matchup will come down to that offensive line. Are they going to be able to hold up enough? This is still a talented, even though there were mass portal departures, this is still a talented Texas A&M football team. They are capable of winning 8 to 9 games this year, even in the SEC. They can win this game. I think Notre Dame is going to find a way to get it done.
Hey, look, I do too, but as you and I talked before we started recording, I will be at that game. And historically, I do not have a great track record when it comes to attending big Notre Dame games on the road. So if you want to bet on this game, if you're a casual observer, you don't have a dog in the fight on either side, I would suggest the under. I believe it's 46.5 on FanDuel right now. That's a low number. I think it's tied for the third lowest throughout week 1, the lowest being Miami of Ohio Northwestern. I think that was like 42 last time I checked, which is hilariously low.
Just wait until Big Ten conference play starts, Tyler. Then we'll see some real over-unders, 27.5.
Well, wait, the Big Ten West is gone, RIP, or else I would subscribe to that theory.
Well, the teams are still there.
That's true, but they're going to
Iowa's going to play
score like Washington. So that's a little bit different. But I would say take the under, because I think both of these defenses are stellar. Both of these offenses have good players, but in most season openers, like, it's very rare for an offense to just come out clicking on all cylinders. Either side. Notre Dame's obviously going to be on the road, which makes things a little bit tougher. They've got a transfer quarterback. They've got a new offensive coordinator, but so does Texas A&M. They have Colin Klein, who actually, weird sort of small world situation here. When Notre Dame had to replace Tommy Rees's offensive coordinator, they were very close to hiring Colin Klein away from Kansas State. Well, now he is with Texas A&M. But before Texas A&M hired Colin Klein, the first person that they reached out to, and apparently they made some significant headway in terms of trying to hire him, was Mike Denbrock, and he is now the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. So it's going to be a very interesting battle to watch. I know that there's been a lot of conversation about Mike Elko. People love him. I get it. People aren't as high on Marcus Freeman because he hasn't really done enough in the first few years. But look at the coordinators, and I actually think that's where Notre Dame has the upper hand. Al Golden compared to Jay Bateman, I'd take Al Golden every time. Mike Denbrock over Colin Klein, I take Mike Denbrock every single time. So it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think Notre Dame is going to hang on and get the win on the road.
I'm going Irish 23-17 in College Station. I think Marcus Freeman has got the defense ready to go. And Connor Wigman, it's not his first time playing college football, but I think the trend that we saw a little bit in week 0 is offenses have been sluggish to start. So I like the under pick of 46.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. I'll take the Irish 23-17 over the Aggies. Your score prediction, good sir.
Wow, I haven't thought about a score prediction just yet. It's got to grind out some film. Got to watch countless hours of tape. No, I'm just messing around. I think it's going to be Notre Dame 17-13.
Oh, that is a Big Ten West game if I've ever heard it.
It's going to be really low scoring, I think. And I think it's ultimately going to come down to two things. Who wins the turnover battle, which is pretty cliche, but also which team has more explosive plays on offense, because I don't think either offense is going to be able to maintain long, sustained drives throughout the course of the game. Now, each offense could have the upper hand on one or two drives, but I think that a lot of them are going to stall out. You're going to have to hit some big plays and take advantage of the opportunities that you get in the red zone. I think that's going to be the difference in this game.
Tyler Wojciak, Locked On Fighting Irish. Tyler, appreciate it.
Of course, anytime.
Oklahoma State has, in my view, a worse chance of making the playoff than Memphis. That's the world we live in now, and that's coming up next. Hey, Locked On College Football fans, want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game I think you're going to love. Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of your favorite team, whoever that might be? Here's what you'll really love about the game. You're responsible for calling plays during the game, so your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but will shape the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC. It's completely free, has no ads, 100% playable offline, and you can take it with you on the go. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On College Football listeners. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk, as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up on app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. For those unfamiliar, welcome to the world of the 12-team playoff. Memphis has a much better chance of getting into the playoff than Oklahoma State. Neither one is going to make the playoff. Do I like Memphis this year? Yes, I do. Seth Hennigan at quarterback, good football player. Their roster, one of the best in the entire G5. You know what I can't get by with Memphis? The fact that they have a brutally tough schedule. It just doesn't work out really well. They are going to have to be road warriors if they want to get to college football playoff. I still think that's more likely than a decently popular preseason Big 12 championship game appearance pick, at the very least, in Oklahoma State, who I'm going to kind of rag on for a few minutes, and then much like Iowa in the Big 10, pick them to go, 8-4. So here's how Memphis' schedule plays out. They have to go at Florida State. I know Florida State isn't as good as some of you thought they were. Heck, I didn't think they were a national title contender, but I didn't think they were losing to Georgia Tech either. I think they'll rebound, stabilize in the next couple weeks. They'll be able to beat Memphis. Who can push them? Mike Norvell and company, you got to be careful. When you have a good roster, a proven head coach, a program that has legitimate playoff aspirations coming off a 10-win season, and you've got a guy like Seth Hennigan at quarterback, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. But that's going to be a loss for Memphis. Now, here are 3 road games. They have 3 road games. This is why it's going to be hard because remember, Memphis has to be the highest ranked Group of 5 conference champion. So they have to win the American, which they could absolutely do. But there are other teams that are going to be in the running, and there's a world where they play well, they have a good season, and they don't even make the American Conference championship game. Because the last week of the regular season, they have to go at Tulane. And in the midst of that regular season, they have to go at UTSA. Those are their 2 biggest threats to win the American Conference this year. And oh, by the way, they also have to go at South Florida. I wouldn't sleep on that game. That's the same South Florida program that just routed a Power 4 program in a bowl game last year in Syracuse, which I'm not saying it makes them a world beater, but on the road, that's a tough trio of American Conference road games. That's about as tough as it gets. There is a real world where the last week of the regular season determines who goes to the American Conference championship game and who has a chance to make it to the college football playoff. Because Memphis, I think they're going to end the year 9-3. I think between those 3 road games that I listed, they lose 2 of them because they're just tough opponents. But if they win all 3, yeah, they're cooking. They'll be cooking with gas. If they're good enough to win all 3, they'll go at least 10-2, maybe even 11-1. But I think Memphis with this schedule ends up at 9-3. I think they lose to Florida State, and I think they lose 2 of those road games against good teams. But if they're able to win 2 of them instead, they wind up 10-2. They'll go to the American Conference championship game in all likelihood and have a real chance to get into the college football playoff, which is an easier path than what Oklahoma State has to deal with. And one note on that Tulane matchup, from what I've read recently, Tulane doesn't have their starting quarterback yet. They've got kind of a 2 or 3-way battle. Oregon former 5-star recruit Ty Thompson has not won the job yet. He could win it, but there are other guys down there. I won't be surprised if that's a Malachi Nelson situation like at Boise State, who could be a Group of 5 champion and get into the playoff, and you end up not having the big-time recruit be the starting quarterback. But we shall see. So Memphis, I think, winds up at 9-3, but their path to being 10-2 in the regular season, and by extension 11-2, if they win the American and being the highest-ranked G5, yeah, it's a better path to the playoff than what Oklahoma State has. So I am down on Oklahoma State in comparison to those who pick Oklahoma State to get to the Big 12 championship game, to win the Big 12. I don't think they are in that discussion. I do not believe that Oklahoma State can win the Big 12 with Alan Bowman at quarterback. This is the best quarterback conference in the entire country. It is crazy deep. I know you've got a veteran offensive line. I know Ollie Gordon is great. I know there are a lot of returners there. But guess what? There are a lot of returners on a team that I wasn't overly impressed with last year. Just like Iowa, they're bringing back a decent amount of their team from a year ago. And guess what? They're just a team. They're good. They can beat teams at the top, but they can lose the teams at the bottom too. But at the end of the season, they're going to wind up with a really, really high floor because of their head coach. Mike Gundy is really good. He's always been really good. And Kirk Ferentz at Iowa is really good. They're both really fantastic coaches that don't bottom out. They don't crater. But I don't see this as being a conference championship team. So Oklahoma State, I think they end the year 8-4. I think they lose 1 game at home and 3 on the road. I think they lose at home to Utah. Now that game is going to come down to who wins the ground game. Can Ollie Gordon be established? If not, Alan Bowman's not going to carve up a Kyle Whittingham Utah defense. That's not going to happen. It just isn't. If they can run the ball, okay, perhaps it is possible. Utah's a better team. Utah's got the better quarterback. I think Utah's got as good or a better roster than Oklahoma State. And by the way, what's an advantage Oklahoma State often has? Well, you got Mike Gundy. Well, you got Kyle Whittingham on the other side, who's one of the best coaches in all of college football. I'll take the Utes to win that game. The other 3 losses for Oklahoma State: at Kansas State. That's a good team on the road. I lean towards the home team unless you give me a compelling reason, such as Cam Rising, Alan Bowman. I'll take Cam Rising. I think Avery Johnson is going to have a solid year. I don't think he's Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12 or a first-team guy or anything like that, but I think that ground game can match what Oklahoma State can do. That's going to be a physical football game. That is going to be a physical football game. So is the Utah game, just to be clear. But that Oklahoma State at Kansas State game, that's going to be physical. I think they lose that game. I think they lose at TCU. TCU is a sleeper team in the Big 12. Everyone's overlooking them because they went to the national championship game, got blown out, and then went 5-7. Got a new defensive coordinator. Sonny Dykes is still a good offensive coach. And you're playing in Fort Worth. I think that's a game Oklahoma State absolutely loses. And if you disagree with any of these metrics, I present to you that this program, a lot of these players lost games to far worse teams last year. Far worse teams. So I'm on Kansas State and TCU being losses. And then get this, last week of the regular season, Oklahoma State's going to be sitting there at 8-3, and Colorado is going to be 5-6, playing for bowl eligibility. And that Boulder crowd spurs them on to a win. I think you have a more explosive offense. I don't quite know what to expect from Oklahoma State's defense. Feels like it kind of goes up and down on a year-to-year basis. They should be good. They should be good. But do they have the horses offensively to keep up with what Colorado's capable of? Because if Colorado's offensive line is just okay, they're going to be scoring at least 24 to 30 points in this game. At least. I know that was kind of a big range. I'll rephrase. 28 to 30 points is what they'll score. Can Oklahoma State do that on the road in Boulder? I don't expect Colorado's defense to be great. I do expect them to be better. So, Memphis and Oklahoma State will be on the outside looking in of the college football playoff when the year comes to a close. Memphis because of their schedule, and Oklahoma State because I just don't buy them. I do not buy the Cowboys. Go prove me wrong, Mike Gundy, by all means. Memphis 9-3, Oklahoma State 8-4 when this year comes to a close. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.